Every once in a while, a drama comes along that holds up a mirror to society, unflinching and raw. Qarz-e-Jaan was one such series. It began as a powerful story of generational trauma and female resilience, quietly demanding our attention. But in the end, it stumbled, its finale pulling back just when it mattered most, leaving viewers questioning not just the characters' fates, but the story's courage to follow through. Written by Rabia and directed by Burhaan, Qarz-e-Jaan premiered on Hum TV in late 2024 under MD Productions. It stars Yumna Zaidi as Nashwa Behzad, a determined law graduate raised in a household marked by generational abuse. Nashwa has long watched her mother silently endure cruelty and neglect from her late husband's family. Her needs and voice repeatedly dismissed in a deeply patriarchal environment. Meanwhile, her cousin Ammar has spiraled out of control, his behavior unchecked, his actions constantly excused by the family. He abuses his privilege, takes advantage of others, and faces no consequences. Caught in the middle, Nashwa struggles between protecting her mother and escaping a toxic family dynamic that keeps pulling her back in. Nashwa's father passed away when she was just a baby, and the illness that led to his death was kept a secret by his family. They knew he was going to pass, but never told Bisma, allowing her to live in ignorance while bearing the emotional burden of his gradual decline. In the years following his death, Nashwa's mother has been treated as nothing more than a burden by her in-laws, forced to live in her late husband's home like a servant. Determined to break the cycle for her mother's sake, Nashwa tries to offer her a way out, by encouraging her to remarry. However, there's a catch. Bisma's freedom comes at a price. In order for her mother to leave the house without scandal, Nashwa must stay behind, and the only way to ensure this is by marrying Ammar. Nashwa, knowing her mother would never allow her to marry someone like Ammar, secretly marries him without her mother's knowledge. Nashwa sacrifices herself to protect her mother, agreeing to marry a man whose cruelty she has long witnessed. It's a painful choice, but one she believes is necessary to give her mother a chance at happiness and a life free from abuse. The story unfolds around Nashwa's internal conflict. Trained in law, she is constantly forced to navigate the delicate balance between family loyalty, legal morality, and the crushing pain of her own sacrifice. With each decision, she must confront the harsh realities of the world she inhabits, one where justice seems always just out of reach. Initially, Qarz-e-Jaan did not dominate viewership charts. It lacked the typical melodrama, love triangles, and stylized visuals that dominate mainstream Pakistani television. Instead, it was deliberately slow-paced, focused on restrained dialogue and long stretches of domestic tension. But by mid-drama, word of mouth shifted its trajectory. Audiences praised the nuanced performances. Yumna Zaidi's portrayal of Nashwa was commended for its emotional restraint. She conveyed power without aggression, pain without melodrama. Tazeen Hussein's portrayal of Bisma was equally layered, a woman broken by years of emotional labor, whose quiet rebellion came too late, but not too little. However, the most polarizing performance was by Namir Khan as Ammar. Critics noted that Ammar was among the most realistically written antagonists in recent memory. Not a caricature of evil, but a man shaped by neglect, entitlement, and unresolved trauma. His character veered between moments of terrifying unpredictability and deep vulnerability. It was a performance that invited both empathy and unease. The finale divided audiences sharply. While some found it moving, others criticized it for compromising the moral core of the story. Many viewers questioned why Ammar was given a sympathetic conclusion, despite his history of violence, including confirmed assault, controlling behavior, and eventual murder. A recurring critique was that Nashwa's arc, once the backbone of the show, became sidelined in service of Ammar's pseudo-redemption. Before diving deeper into the series, it's impossible to overlook the extraordinary performances that elevate Qarz-e-Jaan. Yumna Zaidi's portrayal of Nashwa is, as always, exceptional. Her ability to embody such a complex character with emotional restraint, yet immense inner strength, is a testament to her incredible talent. She once again proves why she's one of the finest actresses in the industry. Aamir Khan, who plays Ammar, delivers a breakthrough performance. His prior appearance in Meh didn't leave much of an impression, but here, he completely convinces us of Ammar's torment, vulnerability, and volatility. It's hard to believe that this is only his second major role. He's certainly one to watch in the years to come. Burhaan, portrayed by Usama Khan, is another standout. Having just been seen in Sun Mere Dil and Khair, Usama's performance as Burhaan is a revelation. His charm, charisma, and commanding presence perfectly fit the character, and he played it with a level of sophistication and depth that exceeded expectations. Deepak Barwani, as Bakhtiar, also impresses in his portrayal of a commanding, oppressive patriarch. Coming from a background in fashion design, this was Barwani's second appearance as an actor after his debut in Yuhi, where he didn't leave much of an impression. However, in Qarz-e-Jaan, he nails the role. His strong presence and powerful delivery of lines made Bakhtiar a truly memorable character. Sakina Samo, a veteran of the screen, continues to prove her unmatched talent. As Barkat, she plays the cold, conniving matriarch of the family with remarkable finesse. Every glance, every subtle shift in her expressions adds layers to her character. Her ability to convey authority and cruelty with just a glance is nothing short of captivating. Tazeen Hussain, portraying Bisma, brought grace and dignity to her role. The transition from a subservient widow to an emancipated woman after her remarriage was beautifully portrayed. Her chemistry with Yumna Zaidi as Nashwa added authenticity to their relationship, and their shared moments were some of the most touching in the drama. Fajr Sheikh, who played Beenish, delivered a truly remarkable performance in a supporting role. She stunned audiences with her portrayal of a woman grieving the loss of her husband and later the heartbreaking loss of her son to her in-laws. Her emotional breakdown in the courtroom was a masterclass in acting, where she convincingly demonstrated her inner turmoil and desperation. Nashwa begins as one of the most morally grounded characters in recent drama history. Her decisions are driven by logic, justice, and compassion. Unlike many Pakistani drama heroines, she is neither passive nor impulsive. Her decision to marry Ammar is a calculated act to protect her mother, fully aware of the consequences. She is not deceived by him, she knows he is a threat, and yet chooses to enter a battle with him from within. However, post-marriage, Nashwa's arc becomes inconsistent. Rather than holding Ammar accountable for his past crimes, most notably his assault on a girl named Ramin, she suddenly begins to soften toward him. This shift occurs abruptly, without any clear justification. One day, she confronts him with disgust. The next, she is taking him to rehab? This decision undermines her core as a character. It's not her compassion that feels unrealistic. It's the lack of confrontation, the absence of accountability, and the erasure of justice. Nashwa's earlier clarity becomes muddied, and by the finale, she is reacting to Ammar's actions rather than shaping her own. Ammar's character was written with depth, but the trajectory of his arc raises ethical concerns. He is introduced as emotionally unstable, with anger management issues and a history of entitlement. Over time, we learn that he was abused as a child, and that trauma shaped much of his dysfunction. This does not excuse his actions, but it contextualizes them. His relationship with Nashwa is coercive. He agrees to marry her under emotional manipulation, constantly imposes his will, and gaslights her throughout. His outbursts are often physical, and eventually he kills a family member in a moment of rage. Yet the show's final episodes frame him as a misunderstood figure. He confesses to his crimes in court and gives Nashwa a divorce as an act of closure. These actions are treated as redemptive, but in reality, they are consequences of his own undoing, not altruistic sacrifices. Critically, the show fails to explore whether Ammar ever genuinely acknowledged the damage he caused to his victims. His apologies are vague. The focus shifts from his accountability to his emotional suffering. This subtle shift in narrative tone reframes him as tragic rather than dangerous, a decision many viewers found troubling. Burhaan is the adoptive son of Asim. Though not biologically connected to the central bloodline of the Bakhtiar Behzad family, Burhaan represents a critical outsider-insider figure, someone who lived abroad for most of his life and only recently returned to Pakistan, making him adjacent to the family fold, but not fully entrenched in its toxicity. Burhaan's presence in the story is significant, precisely because he breaks from the mold. He is emotionally available, morally upright, and sees Nashwa not as someone to control or silence, but someone to listen to and respect. While the men around Nashwa either ignore her, belittle her, or try to possess her, Burhaan gives her space to breathe. His character doesn't exist to save Nashwa, but rather to witness and support her growth, a distinction that feels radical in a story centered around generational harm. What sets Burhaan apart is not heroism, but his lack of complicity. He doesn't gaslight, doesn't suppress, and doesn't dominate. He is the moral counterweight to Ammar, calm where Ammar is volatile, stable where Ammar is unhinged, and respectful where Ammar is possessive. In many ways, Burhaan is what Ammar could have been if he hadn't been consumed by patriarchy, guilt, and obsession. His character suggests that while the legacy of violence runs deep, not everyone in the family is doomed to inherit it. Some break the cycle simply by refusing to play the game. Bisma's arc is one of endurance, generational pain, and quiet resilience. Her character begins with a history the audience only comes to learn in fragments. She was once in love with Asim, but circumstances forced her into marrying Behzad, her cousin, who eventually died of illness. Left widowed in a deeply patriarchal household, Bisma becomes a silent prisoner, used, abused, and controlled by the same family that claimed to protect her. Living with her late husband's family, Bisma is treated not as a grieving widow, but as property, a woman with no agency or identity beyond her marital status. Barkat and Bakhtiar, the two figures who run the house under the guise of tradition and religion, relegate her to servitude. Her every move is policed, her dignity stripped. But even in silence, Bisma resists. She holds on to her compassion, raises her daughter with strength, and ultimately marries Asim, the man she originally loved. Through Nashwa's strategic rebellion, Bisma gets a second chance at life, love, and selfhood. Her journey is a testament to the long and quiet suffering of women who are denied both justice and autonomy, and the rare, courageous moments when that suffering is finally disrupted. Bakhtiar is the enforcer of power, the man whose authority shapes the dysfunction within the household. A deeply patriarchal figure, he prioritizes legacy, control, and appearances above all else. While he outwardly appears disappointed in Ammar for being a failure, even going as far as slapping him in front of his friends, it's clear that Bakhtiar is one of the main architects of Ammar's psychological damage. He covers up his son's crimes, enabling his worst impulses, but shames him for not becoming the image of masculinity he envisioned. Bakhtiar's contradictions mirror the toxic expectations placed on men in such households. Be dominant, be successful, be feared. But don't crack. He demands perfection from his son while giving him none of the emotional tools or moral compass to attain it. His character demonstrates how patriarchs destroy their own lineage while trying to preserve it. Barkat is the spiritual gatekeeper of the household, weaponizing religion and morality to preserve control. Her authority is profound, not just because of her age, but because she commands the respect of tradition, using it as a tool to manipulate, shame, and control the women around her. She supports her son Bakhtiar's reign, excuses Ammar's abusive behavior, and reinforces the hierarchies that silence Bisma and Nashwa. Where Bakhtiar rules through dominance, Barkat rules through indoctrination. She justifies misogyny with scripture, uses shame as discipline, and suppresses any spark of rebellion. Her actions against Nashwa and Bisma are not driven by ignorance, but calculated preservation of the family's oppressive order. She's not a passive elder clinging to old ways. She's an active agent of harm under the guise of tradition. Asim is a quiet, emotionally intelligent man who marries Bisma later in life, becoming Nashwa's stepfather. Asim is what the show subtly offers as an alternative model of masculinity: calm, respectful, and radically gentle. His presence is non-invasive. He doesn't rescue Bisma or Nashwa, but stands beside them. His love is restorative, not possessive. In a family dominated by abusive and emotionally unstable men, Asim's restraint becomes a protest. He does not demand authority. He does not see women as extensions of himself. His decision to marry Bisma, knowing her trauma and history, feels less like romance and more like reparation. He is one of the only male characters whose goodness is not performative. The tragedy is that he arrives so late in Bisma and Nashwa's life, a reminder of what could have been if men like him weren't the exception. Beenish is Nashwa's cousin and confidant, but unlike Nashwa, she grows up relatively protected. Her father Bakhtiar is still alive and takes an active role in her life, insulating her from the scrutiny Nashwa faces. Beenish is shown to be happy, in love, and emotionally grounded, especially in her marriage to Asad, a bond the show invests time in portraying as sincere and affectionate. But her world collapses when Ammar, her own brother, murders Asad. The tragedy devastates her not only emotionally, but socially. Her in-laws, once warm, take her child away, echoing Bisma's treatment years ago. She is suddenly stripped of security, dignity, and agency, a haunting parallel to the way widows are treated in this family. The difference? Beenish had love before it was ripped from her. Her loss becomes a reflection of Bisma's past, and a chilling reminder that in this family, love is not protection, only delay. Sidra is a woman undone by neglect, a wife who never had her husband's attention, and a mother who never earned her son's respect. Her character is largely defined by absence, not her own, but others' absence from her life. Bakhtiar never saw her as an equal, and Ammar only saw her as a means to get his way. She's emotionally starved, consistently dismissed, and quietly mournful. Yet unlike Nashwa or Bisma, Sidra doesn't rebel or reinforce. She disappears emotionally, swallowed by the house's power structures. Her silence is her survival. She represents a different kind of victimhood, the slow erosion of identity when no one ever truly sees you. Her pain is not loud or dramatic, but it lingers in the corners of every scene she inhabits. Qarz-e-Jaan is not just a drama. It is a commentary on systematic issues in Pakistani society, how widows are marginalized and stripped of agency, how silence is normalized in the name of honor, and how male trauma is often prioritized over female suffering. The drama deserves credit for tackling abuse and inherited cycles of violence without sensationalism. For much of its run, the writing was sharp, the acting haunting, and the messaging deeply layered, particularly in its portrayal of Nashwa and her quiet yet persistent efforts to empower her mother. Her self-sacrifice, marrying Ammar so that Bisma could finally be free to marry the man she loved, was both heartbreaking and powerful. But after that moment, the drama began to lose its footing. Nashwa, once a figure of resilience and resolve, was stripped of her agency. Rather than confronting Ammar's past through the legal channels she was trained to understand, she instead takes him to rehab the very next day after their wedding, an unrealistic and jarring move that predictably fails. When Ammar's rage leads him to kill his brother-in-law, the narrative takes an even darker turn, yet continues to center his emotional struggle rather than the consequences of his actions. By the finale, the show seems to shift in tone entirely, painting Ammar as a victim of circumstance, rather than holding him accountable as an adult who chose violence and harm. His decision to graciously divorce Nashwa feels especially bitter, given that she never asserts this for herself. The arc ends not with justice, but with quiet resignation, undermining the very agency the show initially built for its lead. This pivot in portrayal, away from accountability and toward vindication, mirrors a troubling societal tendency to forgive male abusers if they express pain, while expecting women to endure quietly. And in a drama that had otherwise been unflinching in its critique of patriarchy, that choice feels like a disservice to its characters and to its viewers. Qarz-e-Jaan started as a rare example of character-driven television in Pakistan. It centered female agency, showed layered trauma, and explored the cost of resistance in a patriarchal household. But in its final stretch, it lost sight of its thematic promise. By turning its abuser into a misunderstood hero, and its heroine into a passive observer, it diluted its own critique. Even so, Qarz-e-Jaan remains one of the most important dramas of 2025. It forced conversations around power, protection, and justice. Conversations that don't end with a finale. In the end, the drama leaves us with a lingering question. Why are abusive men so easily forgiven when they show a hint of remorse?